All this money, they're putting their money in my bank, and whenever I need it, I'm gonna reach in and get it.
Henry Cook starts looting the bank. He just starts taking this money and lending it or giving it to some friends and acquaintances, just putting the capital into railroad bonds, which was the subprime market of the day.
What's good, family? Welcome to Pretty Realist. If this is your first time joining my channel, welcome. We're going to be diving in deep to a piece of financial history here in America that has been buried for way too long. Yes, the Freedmans Bank. All right, we're going to get off into it because you know what? Miss Kamala Harris is actually the one who put this back in the spotlight. I bet y'all did not know that.
The Civil War ended, and that they set up a Freedman Bureau that says black folk must organize. Let's put blacks into a protected class.
Freedman's Savings Bank was founded by the United States Congress in 1865. It was a bank unlike any other our nation had known. Freedman's Bank was established to serve Black Americans newly freed from slavery.
They said put them into a protected class and give them some resources. That was called the Freedman Bureau.
At Freedman's, to open a savings account, you just needed 5 cents, which, as I've calculated, is about $1 today. In the years after its founding, tens of thousands of Black families opened an account at Freedman's. They saved up to buy a farm, to build a home, to open a business.
And as soon as that went into existence for about a year and a half, and guess what? They did what's been going on ever since then. Immediately the power structure said, no, we can't have that. And they diluted and watered down the Freedman's Bureau.
Now, Freedman's Bank was guided by a vision. The vision of an economy that works for all Americans and includes all Americans.
And includes all Americans.
The vision of a nation in which all people have access to the financial resources they need.
Now let's do a little rewind. 1865, the Civil War ends. Black Americans are finally free. And the freedom came with a question. What now? What now? What we gonna do now? We done built this country. We done did all of this cotton picking, breastfed the babies. We done seen our loved ones snatched from our arms. We done seen our loved ones be unalived and murdered, raped. What now for us? It's a beautiful thing, but it's bittersweet in so many ways. It entered the Freedman Savings and Trust. Now, Abraham Lincoln was excited for this Freedman Savings and Trust. So much so, he said he wanted this to be something that he will be remembered for. But of course, he lost his life. It was established by Congress and was actually marketed as a safe place for Black Americans who were working, who had farms, who were starting businesses to be able to bring their earnings there and learn how, to build their wealth, to learn about financial literacy, to learn about how to save their money, because these are people who have been enslaved for most, if not all of their lives. Even children would take their cents, their little pennies and their coins, and they will put them in the bank deposit to teach them financial literacy at a young age. But behind the scenes, mismanagement. It was a mess, y'all. A mess. Corruption, no real protection, and almost no Black leadership at all. By the time the bank collapsed in 1874, over 60,000 Black Americans had lost everything that they put into this bank. Everything, totaling to about $3 million. That's over $90 million today. This was more than a financial loss. It was a psychological blow, strategic dismantling of Black economic power before it could even begin.
Freedman's Bank was an economic hit job to destroy the remaining wealth of Aboriginal Indians who had farmed the land of the Southeast for thousands of years. Here's the process and who did it. The bank was a financial Trojan horse designed not to build wealth for formerly bonded people, but to absorb, catalog, and then destroy any remaining claims to land, legacy, or inheritance, particularly by indigenous descended freed people. So who were the major elite families involved in this scheme and this ripoff? They traveled together over time and over generation doing these scams. The first one would be the Biddle family. That would be Nicholas Biddle had been president of the second bank of the United States in the 1830s. Then we have the Thayer family, which includes Eli Thayer, who was a major player in immigrant and colonization societies that literally raise money and pay for the passage of a bunch of broke paupers to go colonize parts of Kansas and Missouri and other states. Then you have August Belmont. Belmont is an agent for the Rothschild. Not only is he an agent for the Rothschild family, but he is the biggest agent for them in the United States. And what that meant is he had access to their capital. So you want a railroad, you go to him, okay, in America, and you say, hey, I need $50 million. Well, he has some money, but he also has access to a ton more money through the Rothschild wealth and network back in Europe. Peabody, that would be of the Peabody hotels, which you may have seen in Memphis and Orlando. Guess what? The royalty of Europe knows this, and they knew it then.
Vice President Kamala Harris, she used it to announce new efforts focused on racial equality, access to capital for underserved communities, and restore trust where history calls trauma. However, let me tell you a breakdown of how actually she distributed these funds. And you tell me in the comments whether or not she actually did justice to the people that this bank was actually built for. She gave the Native American Bank in North Dakota $10 million for an opioid addiction treatment facility on tribal lands. Okay. Carver Bank in Georgia, they lent over $500,000 to help Black-owned companies build affordable housing. Hope Credit Union in Mississippi, they lent $10,000. $10,000. They lent it, so it was a loan. $10,000 to a Black woman who owned a coffee company to help them expand. And Southern Bancorp in Arkansas, made a $700,000 loan to a rural affordable housing provider run by an African American female developer. How in the hell, 92%, did y'all let this slip through y'all cracks? I was so pissed off when I saw this because y'all, I never heard of this bank until I did my research, and I got even more pissed off. The reasons why I'm going to do this show today, and I'm going to go ahead and get off into it.
This is the story of one of the biggest robberies in American history. A robbery so big, its impact can still be felt 150 years later. And like most of the biggest robberies in the world, nobody was punished. Picture this. It's 1865. The US Civil War has just ended. The Confederacy is over, and with it, slavery. Formerly enslaved people who fought for the Union during the Civil War had received something for the first time in their lives: a salary. In some places, the military established small banks for these soldiers to deposit their new earnings, and understanding that millions of newly freed people should be integrated into the economic system, Congress decided to expand on that idea and created the Freedmans Bank. The bank was clearly defined as a savings institution. It would not give out loans, and the deposits would only be invested in relatively safe government-backed securities. It was supposed to help Black families earn money on their deposits and increase financial literacy. The bank was initially quite successful, quickly expanding to 37 branches across the country. More than 100,000 people opened accounts. Most deposits were small, less than $60, but the small deposits reflected a bigger hope. This period in US history is called Reconstruction, when Black people were promised equality and the chance to build wealth. But none of that happened. A few things about the Freedmans Bank. First, even though the bank was created by Congress and marketed to Black people as a way to safely invest their savings, the deposits were not protected by the government. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, which insures most bank deposits in the US, wouldn't exist for another 70 years. And second, despite being created for Black people and hiring Black people to work in its branches, the bank had an all-white board of trustees.
Let us all not forget that this was around the time that Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. Enter his sorry-ass vice president, Andrew Johnson, who was a racist. He was a Democrat. He wreaked havoc on their ability to be able to be self-sustainable, to be able to be reintroduced to society. Some of them never have been free in their life, as I mentioned before. This is one of the reasons why I can't, to this day, understand how people could be so forgiving when it comes to the Democrats. Am I saying that the Republicans are a perfect party? Not at all. That was the first party that even allowed Black people to be a part of the government, to be in their Congress. But they gave them a chance. So I really hope that one day the Democrats will be able, Democrats, Black liberals in particular, that you guys would take your head out of your asses for a second. Stop hating Trump and realize there's no such thing as a perfect party. But you would do right to possibly just be an independent than to side with the people who pretty much did everything in their power to make sure that your ancestors suffered when they were free from slavery. Let's get back to the video.
Third, in 1870, that all-white board convinced Congress to change the bank's charter, allowing it to make riskier investments and give out loans. The bank's customers were not told about this change. The board started investing in risky projects and giving out loans to their friends. Some of the trustees were in charge at other banks, and incredibly, they would make bad loans there and then transfer them to the Freedmans Bank's books. This was corruption and theft, and in a country still dealing with the economic fallout of a civil war, it was also a disaster. A financial panic in 1873 made many of the board's loans and investments worthless. Panicked customers made runs on several branches, desperate to get their money out. And so, in 1874, Frederick Douglass, yes, the famous abolitionist, was brought on to serve as president of the Freedmans Bank. He'd always been a strong supporter and put a lot of his own money into the bank. The hope was that his presence would reassure customers, but it didn't take him long to realize the scale of the disaster.
So after you pretty much squandered these people's funds and took care of your little broke ass friends and spent their money that they earned, you then tried to call in Frederick Douglass and say, oh, okay, let's call somebody in so that way he'll reassure the Negroes that their money is safe, even though we didn't spend all of it. They kept record. You see how they have that book right there? A lot of the people who were putting their money into this bank, they kept the records of their funds. And they were still given a hard time when they tried to go back in there to recoup from what they lost. It's been bank failures. Always. There was a panics of 1792 and 1796 and 1797 here in the United States. It said that these periods saw significant financial upheaval and bank failure in the American banking system. And this was specifically in the Bank of Pennsylvania failed due to greedy assholes like the ones that stole from these people. It says mismanagement, fraud, and economic downturn. I'm willing to bet that when they lost their money through these ages, that the money that they took from the Freedmen's Bureau is probably how they got their money back. Possibly were super damn poor before they came over here. And instead of them doing the work, they used the people who were either already here in order to build this country for them, and then they robbed them. They had them build shit for free with threats of violence. Crazy. If you are enjoying this video, which I hope that you are, please make sure you click that bell. Subscribe to the channel. I don't bite. Unless you ask me to.
The bank shut down a few weeks later. It had lost $3 million, $72 million in today's money. But that number doesn't really capture the full cost of the wealth that this money could have built over generations. Instead, thousands of families, many of whom had recently been enslaved, lost everything. Congress did authorize depositors to get back some of what they were owed, but most were unable to be paid, and others spent years or decades filing claims. Meanwhile, none of the men who ran the bank into the ground ever faced legal action. It was a crushing blow to hopes for Black economic prosperity, and just 3 years later, the federal government pulled its troops out of the South. Reconstruction was over, and the old social hierarchy was back. Over the next 150 years, the broken promises and theft of this period played out over and over again for Black Americans. From the return of slave labor in prisons and the profitability of mass incarceration to Jim Crow laws, segregation, and lynchings. From voter suppression and inequality under the law to the urban policies that created impoverished neighborhoods.
This was the Black codes. So all of this that you're seeing right here, everything that he just named, this was the outcome of the Black codes that I mentioned. And our ancestors were so resilient because even after they lost all of that money, they were still a community. They still came together and made amazing contributions to this country. They built their own community. They created Black Wall Streets. And it wasn't just one. It wasn't just the one in Oklahoma. There were several all across the country. You had Seneca Village up there in New York. You had Rosewood down there in Florida. There was an immense amount of wealth for Black Americans, even after slavery. But every time they tried to rebuild back up, here comes these racist people who want to burn down their communities. If you guys get a chance, look up the history of Central Park, the history of Lake Lanier, and how that happened. These were Black communities that were pretty much ran off, destroyed. So this is one of the reasons why stories like this need to be told, because people will understand why Black Americans are never going to stop talking about reparations. They're never going to stop talking about it. And these stories need to continue to be told because it seems that they continue to get lost in the fold because they're not being addressed. And the moment that you talk about it, they automatically just think that you want to cause some type of divisive conversation or divisive narratives. But it's truth. They stole money from people, and their descendants who are from these people did not receive what it was that they were trying to save up. We've given reparations to everybody we were supposed to give reparations to, except for the descendants of slaves. And I know people are going to say, well, why do I need to pay for something that I didn't have any part in? And I understand that. I get it that our country right now is in a very, very tough spot when it comes to our finances. But at the same time, if we can allow so many people to just come over here and continue to suck on the Statue of Liberty's titty, and they not even from here, why can't we give Black Americans what they are owed? What is the problem with that? We have so much land around this country that ain't nobody doing nothing with. Why not allow them to have this land? I understand that some people say, well, they may not be able to build anything on it. But what about the people who can? Or what about we provide the tools the same way that we did in the past when it comes to the Native Americans in these boarding schools, as well as the South Africans, the Afrikaners who came over here? They were giving grants in ways to maintain land. That wasn't some shit that they just knew how to do. All of these people that we see out here that's working on these houses, that's building these highways, that's building these streets, they didn't come over here with the know-how. We paid for them to go to school. We paid for them to get grants and to get understanding of how to do construction, how to do remodeling, how to do landscaping, how to plant, how to farm. Those are things that they learned when they came over here. They didn't come over here with the know-how.
The banking rules that denied Black people loans, and the housing covenants that kept them out of better homes. From the destruction of Black Wall Street in Oklahoma to the predatory lending schemes that cost millions of people, disproportionately Black, their homes and wealth in the 2008 financial crisis. Today, the average white family has 7 times the wealth of the average Black family. The legacy of the Freedmans Bank is still alive.
Definitely is. Now, I'm not the one that likes to run in the victim Olympics. I work very hard for everything that I have. And I don't depend on anybody for anything but the Lord and Savior and my own 2 hands, 2 feet, and my mouth. I probably shouldn't have said it. That was probably kind of dirty. But you know what I'm saying. I work hard for what I have, and I don't look for any handouts. But let's not act as if Black Americans have not had a lot of struggle in this country. Do we have every opportunity to do what everybody else can? Absolutely. Do many have to go through a harder period? or sometimes kind of jump through hurdles in order to get there. Absolutely. We can't deny that racism still exists, that systematic racism still exists in this country. We've paid everybody else. We've given out money to people who didn't even have atrocities on this land, and y'all know who I'm talking about. We didn't owe them any money. What happened to them happened overseas. So why are we honoring them in our country? I'm just saying, think about it. Now, as I mentioned before, it doesn't have to be a paycheck. It could just be rebuilding. It could just be a start in the right direction. Because if one eats, then we all should eat. It shouldn't be people coming from other countries that are able to eat more off of our plate than the people who helped build this country. That's all I'm saying. Listen, I'm gonna get up out of here, y'all. I would love to know y'all thoughts. Are you a descendant of a slave whose ancestor possibly had money in the Freedmans Bank? Have you ever heard of the Freedmans Bank? Like I said, the information's out there. It's on ancestry.com for your review. But listen, don't shoot the messenger, all right? Only receive the message. If it's for you, receive it. If it's not, leave it. Appreciate you all so much. Like, you guys don't even understand. I'm a new content creator on here. I'm a regular schmegler person. And I'm so appreciative of everybody who has been following my content, who has been leaving comments. Y'all got my last video up to 9,000. As long as I've been doing this, I've never had a video do that well. And I don't get paid for this. I just do this because I love it. I love having conversations. I'm a realist. I see shit for what it is, but that don't mean I'm not gonna call it out. That's it. And I appreciate you all supporting the channel. Please share with your friends, share with your family, and make sure you follow me on all social media outlets, especially on IG, as well as TikTok while we still got it, because you know TikTok supposed to be leaving next month. But go ahead, follow your girl at Pretty Realist on TikTok, at Pretty Realist1 on IG. And I'm going to get up out of here, y'all. I'll see you on the next video.
Just trying to stay sucker free in a world full of lollipops. I'm seeing all the ops. Fake news, fake views. It's an illness, the cure to the sick shit. It's the Pretty Realist.